Lift up your heart and praise. Lift up your hands and praise. Lift up your voice and pray.
Happy Sukkot, brothers and sisters. Hello, everybody at home. Here we are at Sukkot 2018. All right. So I was asked to do a devotional, as most people are, and I was struggling. I always have to tell a little story up front. That's just the way I roll. And I was having a good old philosophical discussion with a good brother of mine, and about bringing devotionals. We were relating to one another the difficulty of getting an impression from Yahweh and of what to do to bring glory to His Word, how to do that, because we're talking from a book that's several thousand years old, and it isn't like we're bringing anything new out. It's all been said, it's all been done, but we want to do it in such a way that maybe people out there can get a good impression and can learn something new, or even learn something again. So, and it's hard to do that, especially if you think about it too hard. So I worked on a devotional for over a week on something I really thought would be a good thing, and I was even bragging to my wife about it, going, this is going to be good. It's going to be really good. I've got something going on here. It's going to be great. Okay? And I kept going back to it. It kept getting longer and longer, and I kept taking stuff out and putting stuff in, taking stuff out and putting stuff in. And then a little while later, another brother of mine came up, and he brought me this funny synopsis, of scriptures. And it's just a real brief overview of the whole thing, watered down into just a bunch of lines. And I'm not going to read the whole thing. I'm just going to give you the kind of highlights here. And it starts out, Yahweh comes and He says, don't do these things. Adam, we did those things. Moshe comes and brings the same thing and says, don't do those things. Israel said, we did those things. The prophets come back and they say, don't do those things. Don't do the things. Israel again, we did the things. Yeshua comes and He says, don't do the things. And the people, because at that time, now it's Israel and the nations, we did the things. And we're still doing the things today. And I looked at Harley, my wonderful brother who brought me that, which I enjoyed that so much, and I said, that's my devotional. My devotional was basically, don't do the things. And we did the things. So I got to start over. So here I am, I'm trying to come up with something new. And it's, 8 o'clock last night, scrapped everything. And I had a little prayer with Yahweh, and I said, this is me. I said, Yahweh, what am I supposed to do? Help me out. And Yahweh said, where are you? And me. Sukkot. He said, are you celebrating and joyful? Not at the moment. What did Moshe write down about Sukkot? Something about 7 days we shall celebrate? I got you. So I referred back to what was written on the board, and we write down every Sukkot, Deuteronomy 16:15, and I'll just read it for you real quick. We don't have to flip there. For 7 days you shall celebrate to Yahweh, your Elohim, in a place that Yahweh chooses, because Yahweh, your Elohim, does bless you in all your increase and in all the work of your hands, and you shall be only rejoicing. So the name of my message today is Celebrate and Rejoice. So here I am on 8 days vacation from my job, among family, friends, and I'm bummed out. I'm the first in the saddle, and I'm scrapping my whole devotional. That ain't good. You're not in a joyful place. So I had to ask myself some questions. Celebrating and rejoicing. How important is celebrating and rejoicing? How important is joy? What emphasis does Yahweh place on his set-apart people being joyful? Well, first of all, let's talk about Sukkot, because that's where we are. So if you'll turn with me to Leviticus 23, we'll talk about Sukkot. So Leviticus 23, verse 39. On the 15th day of the 7th new moon, when you gather in the fruit of the land, celebrate the feast of Yahweh for 7 days. On the first day is a rest, and on the 8th day a rest. And you shall take for yourselves on the first day the fruit of good trees, branches of palm trees, twigs of leafy trees, and willows of the stream, and shall rejoice before Yahweh your Elohim for 7 days. You shall celebrate it as a festival to Yahweh for 7 days in the year, a law forever in your generations. Celebrate it in the 7th new moon. Okay. Dwell in booths for 7 days. Booths, Sukkot, Feast of Tabernacles, is where we are. All who are native born in Yisrael dwell in booths, so that your generations know that I made the children of Yisrael dwell in booths when I brought them out of the land of Mitzrayim. I am Yahweh your Elohim. Thus did Moshe speak of the appointed times of Yahweh to the children of Israel. So here we are. This is like the final festival of the year. This is the end result of everything that we've done for the entire year. This is to celebrate the increase that Yahweh has given us, the blessings all along the way. So we're supposed to take of all the fat of the land and everything that we have done, all of our increase, bring it here and rejoice and be forever joyful this whole 7 days. My Sukkot didn't start out that way, but it is now, because Yahweh took care of me. Amen. Yahweh worked miracles during the time he brought us out of Mitzrayim, okay, on our enemies, on our behalf. And doing that, when we left, he increased us greatly. We've got gold coming out of Mitzrayim, we got clothes, we got cattle, we got all kinds of stuff coming out of Mitzrayim. Okay. And he blesses us even now in our set-apart walk, okay, all year long, okay, if we follow his Torah, his commandments, and his judgments. And we'll talk about those just a little bit if you'll turn with me to Deuteronomy 28. Okay. Deuteronomy 28 is a really interesting chapter. It is interesting to me because it talks about, if you're not familiar with it, it is the blessings and the curses. Okay? In Deuteronomy 28, verse 1, and it shall be, if you diligently obey the voice of Yahweh your Elohim, to guard and do all his commandments which I command you today, that Yahweh your Elohim shall set you high above all nations on earth. And all these blessings shall come upon you and overtake you. You will be overwhelmed with the amount of blessings you can receive. They shall overtake you if you obey the voice of Yahweh your Elohim. Blessed are you in the city. Blessed are you in the field. Blessed is the fruit of your body, your children, your grandchildren. Okay? The fruit of your ground and the fruit of your livestock, and the increase of your cattle and the offspring of your flocks. Blessed is your blankets and your kneading bowls. Blessed are you when you come in, and blessed are you when you go out. Yahweh causes your enemies who rise against you to be smitten before your face. They come out against you one way and flee in 7 ways. That's an amazing blessing right there. Yahweh commands and blesses the blessings on you in your storehouses and in all to which you set your hand, and shall bless you in the land which Yahweh your Elohim is giving you. Yahweh does establish you as a set-apart people to himself, as he has sworn to you, if you guard the commands of Yahweh your Elohim and walk in his ways. And all the peoples of the earth shall see that the name of Yahweh is called upon you, and they shall be afraid of you. And Yahweh shall make you to have plenty of what is good, in the fruit of your body, in the fruit of your livestock, in the fruit of your ground, in the land in which Yahweh swore to your fathers to give you. Okay. So this talks about going into the land, and people will say, oh, well, this is all about the land, going into the land. Well, guess what? He also said, you will be scattered amongst the people and the nations. So guess what? He gave that to you too. So you can prosper anywhere you go and keep the commands. So do not think that this is just the land. This is anywhere you tread foot. You can increase and grow. Okay? And it covers everything. These first 11 verses cover everything. Whether you come in, go out, whether you live in the city, whether you live in the country, whether you raise livestock, the increase of your hand, your children, everything. You can't go wrong. Continuing on, verse 12. Yahweh opens to you his good treasure, the heavens, to give the rain to your land in its season, and to bless all the works of your hands, and you shall lend to many nations. So I wasn't quite done yet. But you do not borrow. That's a key. I know the American way is to go into debt as far as you can go so you can have the greatest stuff in the world, but let's not do that, because that is a direct violation of what Yahweh says is a blessing. And Yahweh shall make you the head and not the tail, and you shall be only on top and not be beneath, if you obey the commands of Yahweh your Elohim, which I command you today to guard and do. To guard and do is the definition of belief and faith. You cannot have faith and not do. And do not turn aside from any of the words which I am commanding you today, right or left, to go after other mighty ones to serve them. Okay? Don't let other things become your Elohims, because you are turning away and becoming to idolatry. All we have to do is not turn away from his commands. And after a year of receiving Yahweh's blessings and increase, Yahweh tells us to take a vacation. Commanded. Go here. Dang. Why should I have to leave work? I love work so much. I know that's what y'all saying in your heart. I just have to work. Okay. Take a vacation in his name on the 7th month and celebrate and rejoice. A vacation. Stay in booths, not booze, booths, and have fun. What happened when the Feast of Tabernacles, or Sukkot, had been removed from the people of Israel for a long period of time? Well, let's find out. If you turn to Nehemiah 8, we'll discuss a little bit of that. And if you're not familiar with Nehemiah right off the top of your head, Nehemiah 7, Israel had just returned from captivity from the hands of Nebuchadnezzar. They had just rebuilt the wall and the city. And Ezra, the chief priest, was asked to bring out the Torah and the Scriptures and to read before the people. So Nehemiah 8:1. And when the 7th new moon came, and the children of Israel in their cities, And all the people gathered together as one man in the open space that was in front of the water gate. And they spoke to Ezra the scribe to bring the book of Torah of Moshe, which Yahweh had commanded Yisrael. And Ezra the priest brought the Torah before the assembly of both men and women and all who could hear with understanding on the first day of the 7th new moon. And he read it. He read from it in the open space in front of the water gate from morning until midday, before the men and the women and those who could understand, and the ears of all the people listened to the book of the Torah. And I'm going to paraphrase some of it here. He stood out on a platform in front of all the people. In chapter 7, he had named a whole bunch of Israelites, Levites, to be men of knowledge, to help spread the understanding of what he was about to read. And they were all standing around, and they were intermixed amongst the people, and they were everywhere, throughout the city, at the gate, the water gate. And he read from the book of the Torah, and the Levites walked through the crowds, and if anyone had a problem with understanding, they explained what Ezra was talking about. So they had gotten together with men of understanding first, explained it, walked amongst the people as he read, and helped the people to understand. Now, they had been many years without hearing the book of Torah, okay, and to be able to celebrate the Sukkot. Verse 9. And Nehemiah, who was the governor, and Ezra, the priest, the scribe, and the Levites, who taught the people, said to all the people, "This day is set apart to Yahweh your Elohim. Do not mourn or weep," because they were crying. This was the first time they'd heard this word probably in their lives. Okay? They were crying, they were weeping. For all the people wept when they heard the words of Torah. Then he said to them, "Go, eat the fat, drink the sweet, and send portions of those for whom none is prepared." So share. For this day is set apart to our Master. Do not be sad, for the joy of Yahweh is your strength. Ever thought about that? Have you ever felt better after you laughed? Had a good laugh? You go and laugh, or the laughter of children. Does it not raise your spirits? I know it does mine. We were just out there on the merry-go-round, sending the kids around, and they were squealing and laughing, and it was the greatest thing. So, but the joy of Yahweh is your strength. That's how important joy is. Joy is literally your strength. If you're happy, you work twice as hard. Verse 11. And the Levites were silencing all the people, saying, "Hush, for the day is set apart. Do not be sad." They were still weeping. And all the people went to eat and drink and to send portions and make a great rejoicing, because they understood the words that were made known to them. So I'm going to paraphrase the rest of it. Okay. After that, they celebrated. Okay. From day to day, they went out on the tops of their houses. They went out in the streets. They went everywhere, and they set up booths. Okay. So, Sukkots for Sukkot. They set them up all around in the city, everywhere, at the gates, on top of the roofs and in the streets. And they had a block party for 7 days. Okay? They actually did it for 14 days, but that's okay. They did a week, and then they did another week, but that's all right. Yeah. They had a wonderful time. They danced, they sang, They had a great time. Everyone had plenty. They enjoyed themselves. They had a field day and a half like we're going to have later. There was children running through the streets. It was mass chaos in the right kind of way. They so missed Sukkot in the Torah that they wept and had to be told to go out and have a good time. They had to be told to go have a good time. Celebrate and be joyful. Imagine what it would be like to have the ark in the tent of appointment. Because we don't have that right now. We're in the dispersion. We don't have the ark. We don't have the tent of appointment. But could you imagine if that was in our midst, what that would be like? Okay. But they did at one time. And how did that go? What did that look like? Well, let's find out. If you turn to 1 Kings, chapter 8. This is King Solomon, Shlomo. In 1 Kings chapter 8 is a long chapter. It's very long. And I'm going to paraphrase a good bit of that, okay? We're not going to read that verse for verse. So we're going to jump around here, but I want to read some of it, parts of it here and there, on down through. 1 Kings chapter 8, verse 1. Then Shlomo assembled the elders of Israel and all the heads of the tribes, the chief fathers of the children of Israel, to himself, sovereign Shlomo of Israel, to bring up the ark of the covenant of Yahweh from the city of David, which is in Zion. And all the men of Israel assembled to sovereign Shlomo at the festival in the month of, Eliam. I can't speak. Yeah, thank you. Appreciate that. Which is in the 7th new moon. So this was Sukkot. They were getting ready to do Sukkot here. And the elders of Israel came, and the priests took up the ark. They actually had the ark. That is awesome. Brought up the ark of Yahweh and the tent of appointment, and all the set-apart utensils that were in the tent, and the priests and the Levites brought them up. And they got around and they set up everything. They got it all ready to go. Everything was there. The ark, the tablets, the tent of appointment, everything was there. In verse 10, and it came to be when the priests came out of the set-apart place that the cloud filled the house of Yahweh. Could you imagine seeing that? I can't imagine seeing that. So the priests were unable to stand and perform the service because of the cloud, for the esteem of Yahweh filled the house of Yahweh. And Shlomo said, Yahweh has said he would dwell in the dark cloud. I have indeed built you, him, an exalted house, an established place for you to dwell in forever. And the sovereign turned around and blessed all the assembly of Israel, while all the assembly of Israel was standing. And he said, Blessed be Yahweh Elohim of Israel, who spoke with his mouth to my father David, and with his hand has filled it, saying, Since the day I brought my people Israel out of Mitzrayim, I have chosen no city from any tribe of Israel in which to build my house, for my name to be there. But I chose David to be over my people Israel. And it was in the heart of my father David to build a house for the name of Yahweh Elohim of Israel. But Yahweh said to my father David, Because it has been in your heart to build a house for my name, you did well that it was in your heart. Only you do not build the house, but your son, who is coming from your loins, he does build the house for my name. Shlomo was basically contracted by Yahweh to build him a house. Now Yahweh has established his word, which he spoke, and I have been raised up instead of my father, David, and sit on the throne of Israel as Yahweh promised, and build a house for the name of Yahweh Elohim of Israel. And he did so. And he appointed the place for the ark where the covenant of Yahweh, which he made with his fathers when he brought them out of the land of Mizraim. And then they celebrated Sukkot. And Shlomo went through and he confessed the sins of the people. He talked about what the people were to do. He talked about the oaths and the sins throughout this chapter. And if we skip on down to verse 57, and Yahweh Elohim is with us as he was with our fathers, and he does not leave us nor forsake us, to incline our hearts to him, to walk in all his ways, and to guard his commands and his laws and his right rulings, which he commanded our fathers. And let these words of mine, with which I have made supplication before Yahweh, be near Yahweh, our Elohim, day and night, to maintain the cause of his servant and the cause of his people, Israel, the matter of each day in its day, so that all the peoples of the earth might know that Yahweh is Elohim. There is no one else. Let your heart therefore be perfect to Yahweh your Elohim, to walk in his laws and guard his commands as at this day. Let your heart therefore be perfect to Yahweh your Elohim, to walk in his laws and guard his commandments as at this day. And the sovereign and all Israel with him slaughtered slaughterings before Yahweh, and Shlomo slaughtered slaughterings of peace offerings, which he slaughtered to Yahweh, 22,000 bulls and 120,000 sheep. Thus the sovereign and all the children of Israel dedicated the house of Yahweh. That was one heck of a big barbecue. That's a party right there. There was a lot of dancing going on there. Celebrations to Yahweh, rejoicing, making a loud noise. I guarantee you there was a lot of Israelites running around crying out his name then.
Praise Yahweh.
Yeah. On that day, the sovereign set apart the middle of the courtyard that was in front of the house of Yahweh, for there he made ascending offerings and grain offerings and the fat of the peace offerings, because of the bronze slaughter place that was before Yahweh was too small to contain the ascending offerings and the grain offerings and the fat of the peace offerings. He couldn't put it all on the altar. He had to set up another place to put everything. And Shlomo at the time performed the festival, and all Israel with him, a great assembly from the entrance of Hamath to the Wadi of Mizraim. Before Yahweh, our Elohim, 7 days and 7 days, 14 days. For he did a dedication for 7 days and another 7 days for the Sukkot. On the 8th day he sent the people away, and they blessed the sovereign and went to their tents, rejoicing and glad in heart for all the goodness that Yahweh had done for his servant David and for Israel, his people. How awesome would that be? That was one heck of a party. Yahweh blesses us and gives us much and asks so little. And what he does ask, he asks for us to do in rejoicing. For the blessings he gives us, he asks that we celebrate and rejoice. Sing, dance, blow the shofar, make a joyful noise. Why? I think Moshe answered that question the best. And I'll just read this one for you because it's really short. And it is, Number one, most important thing you can do. And Yahweh your Elohim shall circumcise your heart and the heart of your seed, to love Yahweh your Elohim with all your heart and with all your being, so that you might live. Okay? That is the number one thing. If you aren't doing this, it doesn't matter if you're doing all the rest of them. You don't do that, it's all for naught. He is trying to get you to love His blessings with joy and laughter. Celebrate His times and guard His commands. What happens when we don't? It isn't good. Go back to Deuteronomy 28. Not only does it contain blessings, but it's got a whole lot more curses. We're not going to read them all because there's a whole bunch. But we are going to touch on one of them. Or we're actually going to read a block there. Deuteronomy 28, verse 45. And all these curses shall be upon you. All those curses that are above that. And they shall pursue you, or shall pursue and overtake you. You will be overwhelmed with these curses, until you are destroyed, because you did not obey the voice of Yahweh, your Elohim, to guard His commands and His laws, which He commanded you. And they shall be upon you for a sign and for a wonder, and on your seed forever, because you did not serve Yahweh your Elohim with joy and gladness of heart for all the plenty. He didn't say you didn't follow His commandments. You didn't do it with joy. You might have followed the commandments, but you didn't do it with joy. And you shall serve your enemies who Yahweh sends against you. Nebuchadnezzar. If we remember that back up when I read that earlier. In hunger and in thirst and in nakedness and in need of all. And he shall put a yoke of iron on your neck until he has destroyed you. All because you just couldn't get together at Sukkot, follow his commands. So little. So little. What happens to nations who don't honor Sukkot in Jerusalem? Also not good. So later, after everything is said and done and we've gone back to the land, this will still be going on. We'll still be celebrating Sukkot. This will happen. And everyone we conquer along the way will be celebrating it with us. And if they don't, not good things. If you turn to Zechariah 14, we'll see what happens to them. That is in the old ISR, 1998 ISR, 642. Okay. And if we are there, Zechariah 14, verse 1. See, the day shall come for Yahweh, and your spoil shall be divided in your midst, and I shall gather all the nations to battle against Jerusalem. And the city shall be taken, and the houses plundered, and the women ravished. Half of the city shall go into exile, but the remnant of the people shall not be cut off from the city. Okay, that is back in what happened in the past. That has happened. Okay. And Yahweh shall go forth, and he shall fight against those nations. And as he fights in the day of battle, and in that day his feet shall stand upon the Mount of Olives, which faces Jerusalem on the east. And the Mount of Olives shall be split in two. From the east to the west, a very great valley, and half of the mountain shall move toward the north, and half of it toward the south. And you shall flee to the valley of my mountain, for the valley of the mountains reach to Atzal, and you shall flee as you fled from the earthquake in the days of Uzziah, sovereign of Yehudah. And Yahweh my Elohim shall come, all the set apart ones with you. And in that day it shall be, there is no light, it is dark. Sounds a lot like Revelations, doesn't it? Oh my. Who'd have thought? And it shall be one day which is known to Yahweh, neither day nor night, but at evening time there shall be light. And in that day it shall be that the living waters flow from Jerusalem, half of them toward the eastern sea and half of them toward the western sea, in summer as well as in winter. And Yahweh shall be sovereign over all the earth. In that day there shall be one Yahweh, and his name one. And the land shall be changed into a desert plain, from Geba to Rimmon, south of Jerusalem. And she shall be raised up and inhabited in her place, from Benjamin's gate to the place of the first gate and the corner gate, and from the tower of Hananel to the winepress of the sovereign. And they should dwell in her, and there shall be no more utter destruction, but Jerusalem shall be safely inhabited. This is all of Revelation sort of rolled up into one, if you're not catching that, long before Revelations was ever written. And this is the plague with which Yahweh plagues all the people who fought against Jerusalem. Their flesh shall decay while they stand on their feet, and their eyes decay in their sockets, and their tongues decay in their mouths. And it shall be that in that day that the great confusion from Yahweh is among them, and every one of them shall seize the hand of his neighbor, and his hand rise up against his neighbor's hand. And Yahweh shall fight at Jerusalem as well. And the wealth of all the nations round about shall be gathered together, gold, silver, garments in great quantities. So also is the plague on the horse and the mule, and on the camel and the donkey, and all the cattle that is in those camps is this plague. And it shall be that all who are left from all the nations which come up against Jerusalem shall go up from year to year to bow themselves to the sovereign, Yahweh of hosts, and to celebrate the feast of Sukkot. So, we've been scattered, and we will be drawn back. And when we are drawn back, we will celebrate Sukkot, and we will be rejoicing. And it shall be that if any one of the clans of the earth does not come up to Jerusalem and bow himself to the sovereign, Yahweh of hosts, on them there is no rain. That is one of the blessings. Okay? To have rain in your seasons. They won't get it. And if the clan of Mitzrayim does not come up and enter in, then there is no rain. On them is the plague with which Yahweh plagues the nations who do not come to celebrate the feast of Sukkot. So you either come to Sukkot or you ain't part of the people. In that day, set apart to Yahweh, shall be engraved on the bells of the horses, and on the pots of the house of Yahweh shall it be like the bowls before the slaughter place. And every pot in Jerusalem and Yehudah shall be set apart to Yahweh of hosts. And all those who slaughter shall come and take them and cook in them, and there shall no longer be a merchant in the house of Yahweh of hosts in that day. First of all, wow, it's kind of scary stuff, you know. But it's also awesome stuff. As long as you're set apart to Yahweh. Because if you're not set apart to Yahweh, you're on the scary part, not on the awesome part. So for me, I will be celebrating and I will be rejoicing every Sukkot. Just like it's my first or my last. My love to all my brothers and my sisters, and thank you so much for coming and hearing me. I hope it helps you to be a little happier this Sukkot and to remember to rejoice in the name of Yahweh. Be set apart. So walk as Yeshua walked and you'll be there. Hallelujah.